Welcome to Spiritual as Fuck,
Spiritual as Fuck,
a podcast where we explore everything outside of the ordinary. I'm Liz Volpe. I'm a social entrepreneur, now psychic medium, teacher and mentor with a huge passion to inspire people to dream big and change the world.
I'm Dianne Driscoll, a coach, facilitator and speaker. I'm also a psychic intuitive, learning to incorporate my spiritual gifts into my life and business.
We're here today to share real and raw spiritual stories. It's going to give you a safe space to challenge what's normal and have some serious fun along the way.
We hope you're ready to get spiritual as fuck.
Hello everyone, it is time for yet another episode of Spiritual as Fuck with Liz and Dianne. How exciting. Hi Dianne, how are you?
Oh, doing good.
Good. Now, you know what? There is something in my life that I live for, and that is doing things off the cuff. I love the element of surprise. It's something that I have in nearly all of my relationships, from my relationship with my husband and my kids. I love just changing shit up and seeing what happens, and that is exactly what we're doing today. Today we have Dianne in the hot seat. Decided approximately 3 minutes ago. How are you feeling, Dianne?
I'm shitting a brick. Could you tell when you asked me before how I was like all very nervous. It's like,
yes, you should be.
Yep. Real and raw stories coming at you, folks.
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of like getting you in this position because, let's face it, you're definitely the more professional of the two of us, very well polished.
Come on.
So perhaps I should really dig deep today and give you a really hard time with some questions. What do you reckon?
Go on.
You're going to hate me after this, but let's just see how it goes. No, okay. On a serious note, this is just going to be a pleasure for me. You know, I think that people presume that me and you have known each other for like a lifetime. In some ways, it feels like a lifetime.
Yeah.
You know, the journey from the idea, sharing it to you, to, you know, a year and a bit later, us, you know, running the podcast and becoming, you know, besties, spiritual besties, which is really beautiful. But before that, we didn't really know each other at all. So it's just been a great journey. And I've learned so much about you. And I feel like you've got so much to offer the world. And being a bystander to your journey has been really interesting. And I want to kind of follow a few themes tonight with this, which I'll kind of share in a second. But I just want to set this up by saying that one of the things that I admire the most about you, Dianne, is that you are truly an eternal student. You know, when you decide to learn and you go on a journey, it is not half-assed. You know, you jump in feet first, and you're actually not scared to kind of just see what happens, which I know has been a journey for you anyway.
Yeah.
You know, coming from a corporate background and shedding that skin and all that type of stuff. But kind of going back in time, I remember the first one, either episode 1, 2, or 3. I remember, and you were like, "Oh my God, Liz," and you were talking about the fact I had psychic powers, and at the time, you know, it probably seemed so crazy, and like, wow, that's amazing. And I remember to this day saying to you, Dianne, this is going to happen to you. And I got that message, you know, from your spirit guide sat in the same room as you. How did you feel when I first said that to you?
Oh, no way. Like, as in, I remember the moment, because it was, I heard you say it and I thought, oh, that's nice, because I do believe that everybody does have these gifts, but could I really see myself with any sort of extrasensory gifts at all? No, like not on the level that you had. And I think I knew that I was so spiritually curious, like really into paranormal, parascience, you know, parapsychology, all of that sort of stuff. Like, so definitely very interested, very curious, believe that we all have untapped gifts in some way. But to actually, you know, if I think back through a lot of our guests, having any gifts on those scale, definitely would never have thought.
Because I mean, and I feel like anyone that's kind of started and binge listened to all of the episodes from 1 until now has also gone on this journey, and I'm guessing that a lot of people will have been in the same position as you, where they've been sat there going, oh wow, all of these guests, they're so amazing. I'd love to be able to do that. I'd love to call in my spirit guides and connect with a loved one, or just feel intuitive. And we've seen and witnessed this happen to you. This is now happening to you. Dianne spoke to me a few days ago, and she had actually consciously channeled. Now, that's pretty cool, Dianne. Tell us about that.
Oh my gosh. So we're recording just after the eclipse and the full moon. And in the leading up days to that, I'd started to get these downloads. Let's just call them downloads. So information that was about the collective. Now, normally when I'll do posts on things about, the full moon, new moon, always do it. And I do feel a little bit of that is somewhat channeled, or it's probably more intuitive, I would call it, than channeled. But a lot of those are from my own perspective. But this was very collective energy, almost like I was getting these downloads of what was required for people to get through this eclipse season. And the first thing that came to me was I was doing just a messenger exchange with my sister about something. And, I knew she'd gone to bed, and I felt compelled that I have to write this. Now, seriously, this was like a short novel by Dianne. It was just so much information. And I'm sure when she got up in the morning, she was thinking, what the fuck? But I literally had all this information spilling out of me. And I thought to myself, I need to do a post about this.
I want you to explain by spilling, because I know what it feels like to channel, but maybe our listeners don't. Tell me what happened.
Yeah, literally. So because I was typing a message, I couldn't type fast enough. Like it was flowing out of me is the only way to put it. I don't even know if it would have worked if we were having a conversation, as an example. It felt, and I usually feel restricted by writing, like by typing. I feel like it kind of, I edit myself too much on it. But this just seemed to be, I flowed it all out of me, and then I went back and just, edited a few kind of typos and things like that. But I felt really strongly that I wasn't supposed to change any of the information in it. Like it was literally flowed out of me. Here's what it is. I've got to hit send. And I had no idea how my sister was going to receive this, but I just thought that was needed to be done. And then I had this overwhelming sensation that I needed to do a post about it, that this wasn't just for me and my sister. This was for everyone, or for certain people who needed to see it. And I totally ignored that. And I thought, well, who am I to be writing a post about eclipse season and eclipse energy? And, we had just recently done a channel session with Lisa Salvatore. And gosh, she's such an expert in all things astrology. And we were talking eclipse season. I'm thinking, who am I to talk about this? Following day, one of our listeners, who's also a good friend of mine, we've both been in speaking circles together. And the same thing happened. We were having this exchange, and I thought, I need to send that exact message to her. So I literally went in, copied and pasted from my sister, changed like one or two things that just had a personal note on it, and sent it to her. And within a few minutes, she replied, and she was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I needed to hear. And there was some stuff going on for her. And I was like, oh shit. And again, massive overwhelming feeling. And I'm hearing this, like it was like, you need to do a post. You need to do a post. And I still disregarded it for the day, and it came back to me in the middle of the day, and it was getting closer to eclipse time. So it's almost like if I don't do it now, it's not going to go out. And it was like, I needed to have visuals for it. So it had to be a reel. There needed to be visuals. There needed to be music. It needed to be the whole thing pulled together. And again, I went into this void between Canva and then on Instagram, where I was putting this out. And I knew, so this is so funny because this is the logical brain kicking in. I knew, okay, there's no way I can condense all this information into a 90-second reel for Instagram. And I thought, I'm not allowed to edit anything out. Like I literally was not allowed. It was like, no, you can't take that out. That's important. That's important. That's important. And I guess for listeners who haven't seen this, so the context was we're about to go into eclipse season. And during this season, the most important message that I was getting through was that we all need to hold our vibration, our, level of consciousness at the highest possible state. So it's like, I know this is not just a spiritual thing. I've always known the eclipse times is very chaotic, and it is a time that births a lot of change. And because change is the core of what I do, that side of it, I was like, okay, I'm comfortable with that. But this was the spiritual side of it. It was like, okay, raising your level of consciousness, holding yourself up. And then I had, when that was coming through, it was like, that's not enough. I need to give practical examples, and all the practical examples of what you can do. And none of it's rocket science, but it was like, literally, people need to know this. You need to get it out there, and you need to get it out in a very practical way. And yeah, you might not be able to jam it into 90 seconds, but you just have to do it. And I like the feedback I got, because I got feedback from a few people about, oh, it's too fast, I can't read it and that. And I'm thinking, I know, and I hear you, but I couldn't do anything about it. Like, I literally, if I look at, I guess I review a lot of people's work as speakers and, keynotes and things like that. And I'll always give feedback. And I was so grateful for the feedback, but it was like, I'm sorry, my hands were tied.
It was meant to be how it was.
Yeah, meant to be completely.
I love that. And, you actually brought up so many points there that I can mention. It's interesting, right? Because we all channel, we all channel in our own way. We channel when we're at work, we channel in our personal lives, when we're giving advice to a friend on a problem. Like, there'll be instances where we are in the present and we receive information via one of our intuitive senses, and it comes through. The conscious or the energy of collective energy feels different. Yeah, it feels different to channeling from almost like a single voice. So I know that feeling, and I want everyone to experience that feeling. The writing thing is really cool, and this is something practically that everyone can try. Is when you sit and you're either typing straight into a phone or you're writing, it almost stops the ego or the rational thinking mind getting in the way. It pushes it out of the way, because you have to get things down so fast. And that's why with all of my readings, I always channel with a pen. Like, the more I write, the more the door opens for me to receive information from my higher self or the universe. So I love that that's kind of like getting it down into the phone, and then the urgency you were feeling. And even though, that sneaky bit of imposter syndrome was really trying to sneak in there. And which is only the ego, the fear, the ego, like, who am I to be posting this? The thing is, when you receive divine information, it can't not be shared. And it is scary. But at the same time, you have such an inner knowing, in that gut region, that this is just something that needs to be out there. Yes, the right people will see it. And I want to just give you a big cuddle and a pat on the back for doing that. I've been so brave.
But it's funny, because I am generally a person who, like you said about learning and that, but I generally, don't give a shit what I look like, to a degree. Like, I don't mind being vulnerable. I don't mind putting myself out there. And I don't even know exactly what, the resistance was. Who am I? It was that, like, not like, it sound like what I was getting felt like, while it wasn't rocket science, it was still coming from a perspective of an expert. And I'm thinking, I am so not an expert on any of this stuff. But it was that feeling of, the overwhelming feeling I was getting, this is exactly what's needed at this point in time, and it has to cut through. So there cannot be any fluffy spiritual waffle, transcending and all of this sort of stuff. And that's why I find it so funny looking back on it afterwards, that there was both kind of spiritual terms and almost like corporate terms, or like a difference between the terms that were in there, that different people, it would resonate with them in different ways. So it was just interesting for me to look back at it and think, how did that come tumbling out? And why could I not, when I wanted to delete certain words on it, it was like, no, it has to go like this. It has to go like this.
Yeah. The whole surrender, the thing, is always the theme in a spiritual journey. It's that, for me, I've also battled with this type of thing for ages, on like actually saying something that comes through. But I kind of view it now, whereas, who am I not to say this? Because this information hasn't come from me. It's come from a much bigger, greater place. Who,
Yeah.
how dare I even consider for a second that I shouldn't share this?
Yeah, yeah. It's so funny you say that, because I put those words literally to my friend who'd been messaging me, and because it reminded me of a Marianne Williamson quote, and I said, I said, of course I'm getting the kind of, imposter syndrome, but who am I not to? And I just thought, at the end of the day, you put it out there, it's a bloody reel. So, half the people don't even see it, or they scroll on. It's like, if it's important, you'll, if it resonates with you, you'll stop and you'll have a look with it. You'll decide whether it's for you or not. In the scheme of what goes on in people's lives on a daily basis, seriously, get over yourself and put it out there. But I think the massive validation for me, well, I say validation, but I often hear through your work and other guests that we've had on the show about when you get something that validates back to you. So that reel went through the roof. Like, I have never had anything that has that many, that much reach or engagement. The amount of private messages that I got out of it was off the charts. And the number of people who viewed it who weren't followers, and it's so funny, because I'm not a stats part. I view Instagram as being, my place that I can just put out my thoughts into the world. I don't actually review how many likes, how many shares, how many whatevers. But that one I went into because I started getting all these followers, and I started getting all these messages, and I was like, what is going on here? And even the amount of saves, and I was thinking, oh wow, people thought this was good enough to save for Liz. It was the funniest thing. It was like, shit, what is going on here? But
the soul talks. The soul,
yeah,
when the soul talks, the soul talks. I think how.
And I had this huge realization, because I thought to myself, oh my God, that was 100% channeled, totally channeled. But then I realized that, like, it really made me think that I do that all the time in my coaching. I've done that so many times in a corporate boardroom. Like, I just know, and I know I've said that on this podcast previously, but you're right. This was different. It was different because it was collective energy. It wasn't, I'm dealing one-on-one with this person who's in front of me that I'm coaching, or I'm dealing with the people in this boardroom. And I guess I definitely tap into the collective energy of, if I'm doing a keynote, or I've realized that, or if I'm doing some sort of organizational change with a corporate organization. Now, like, that was some of the stuff that came flooding to me. It was like, oh, you do have subsets of the collective that you tune into in your work. And it's like, holy shit, that is so cool to realize. And then it gives me permission to step out of the way and stop over intellectualizing things, which is my big thing, that I'll over intellectualize things, or I'll edit it before it goes forward. Now it's like, wow, that's just get out of the way and let it happen.
Yeah, so interesting. Going from, the start until now, I'm going to jump back again here, because it's been that incredible journey of, the suggestion that, one day this is going to happen to you, to the point of this has just happened. And
full on.
I love this saying, it's not the destination, it's the journey that counts, because your journey has been incredibly interesting over the last, say, 12, 14 months especially. And that's been a journey of, obviously, highs and lows. It's been a spiritual journey, which is always, I believe, the hardest. But I guess what I've noticed as your bestie on the side has been that you've been through similar things to me, in terms of, while you've been learning and being open and being really attempting to kind of go with the flow and surrender to what the hell this spiritual journey has been, there's been quite a bit of resistance that you've met along the way. And I'd kind of like to go back to that, because I know, Jesus, I've had so much resistance to things in my life. We hear from our listeners that this happens,
Yes.
like, you have a goal, you want to make something happen, you want to know what your soul's purpose is, you want it now,
exactly.
and you'll be following all the practical, logical steps to figure out what your why is, as an example. But the problem is, the minute that you step onto a spiritual journey, that stuff no longer works.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. If you can kind of take us back to that crossroads, really, you'd gone through your spiritual awakening, and we've spoken before about, suddenly you couldn't really do that type of work anymore, and you were starting to investigate what the future could look like. But there were lots of kind of things that were resisting and obstacles coming up.
Yeah, huge, because I know we have spoken about this, Liz, a lot, but I don't know that I've necessarily said it on the podcast. Like, I mean, and I know I weave in my own experiences and in most of the episodes that, you know, we both chat about our own lives as well as when we're interviewing our guests. But for me, over the last, like, since my spiritual awakening, there have been certain areas of my life that I've just felt obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. And one of the big kind of major blocks that I've had in my life have been to do with either finances, like anything to do with, like, you know, and I'm a coach. I understand that there's limiting beliefs attached to that as well. But also administration. So anything that required me to do. So as an example, updating my website from my married name to my maiden name. That took me over 2 years to do, like, literally. And like, I mean,
Diane, I nearly got your laptop and did it for you at one point.
You're not the only one. You're not the only one. But this is the thing. The reason I want to share this is that, like, people look, you know, you put a coach up on a pedestal, you put a teacher, a leader up on a pedestal. At the end of the day, we all have our shit. We all have our stuff that we're struggling with. And I have been in this unmerciful void trying to figure out, well, you know, I knew I was wife and mother and, you know, no longer a corporate person, but still very embedded into the corporate world because a lot of my services went into the corporate world. And then to have all of that turned upside down. And every time I did something that felt like I was working in a corporate job, and that was anything financial, anything administrative, they were the things that brought me back into, and, you know, like we hear this talk about, you know, masculine energy versus feminine energy. It was like my spiritual awakening was bringing me into my feminine energy. And then all of those things were bringing me back into my masculine / corporate type energy. So massive clashes were going on with this. So,
and it feels so yuck when you're trying to do that, doesn't it? It's like, no, I don't want to do it.
100%. And I will give a very, again, this is, and I'm sharing this is a really personal thing for me, but I had, you know, since moving out of my home, I had put stuff into storage. And the day that I was going into that storage unit thinking, geez, I do not know where my life is going. Like, literally, my life is in a handful of boxes that I'm putting into this storage unit. I don't know where I'm going, don't know what I'm doing. Like, my life is just completely upended. And I went from that, like, to not being able to go back to that storage unit. Like, I've gone back to get bits and pieces, but to actually clear it out. And now, because I'm about to go back to Ireland for 6 months, and I've had some clearing work done recently, but it was like today I went back, cleared everything out of it, and it was like, oh shit, what was the big deal about all of that? But when I went, yeah, exactly. And when I went in, the minute I walked in, and I feel like my sense of smell has been really heightening lately, but the minute I walked in, the smell of, you know, Kennard storage, you know, hit me. And I was like, oh my God, instantly brought back to that moment in time of where my life was completely unraveling. And I, you know, the feelings overwhelmed me. I sat with them for a moment and I could feel the tears welling up. And I just thought, shit, my life has completely transformed since that time. Like, I am a different person. Yeah, I still may not have completely figured out who I am and what I'm doing yet, but that's so okay. I am enjoying the journey for the most part. Yes, I'll be tearing my hair out about some sort of financial spreadsheet that I need to do, or my BAS returns and things like that. But at the end of the day, fuck, this has been the most amazing roller coaster for the last couple of years. And I actually can't wait to see what's going to happen next. But those moments that you have, that you realize the resistance. And the other example, which is a big one, like leading up to Christmas, I had this program that I was going to launch, and it was like, you know, my labor of love that I had been working on for quite some time, and it wasn't working. And I kept bashing up against it. It's like, I can't launch it. I can't. And I couldn't explain why. I'd done all the work. I couldn't explain why. And I just thought, either I push through, which would have been the old me, and the, you know, the corporate, just get it done. Here's a deadline. You've got to honor your commitments. And I just thought, no, this is the only person who's putting this deadline on me is me. So I let it go completely. And I was giving myself a hard time about it. So I let go some more. And it was, no, I'm putting it out of my mind completely. I'm not even going to give it a new due date, anything. And then literally on my birthday, which is 11th of March, because that day out
Pop
of
it
the
in your
blue.
calendars, everyone. She expects flowers next year.
I got flowers. I got flowers from Liz, which was a sign in itself. But on that day, a random post again, an Instagram reel that came up, or a post from a lady I know who's a strategist. I've never worked with her, but I'm aware of her work. And she had put up a post to say that she was just going to do a month of offering people whatever they could afford to pay for her sessions. Now, I could afford to pay for her sessions,
Hell
but I
yeah.
loved the energy of that. So
Yeah.
I booked in a session instantly, and I paid like the maximum that was available to it, because I thought, I want to honor the fact that I can afford this for other people who can't. And in that session, I realized that the block that I had before Christmas was I didn't want to release my program as this high ticket, as they call it, or working with a small group of people for a high amount. For me, it was like, I want to actually help as many people who've been through the shit that I've been through in my life, who have struggled with
Love
things,
that.
and make it at a reasonable price point. Now, I didn't want to offer it for free, or even the model that Amy Triscari is the lady that I was working with. I was like, no, I don't want to do that as my model. But I tuned into what I needed, and she was great at pulling this out. Literally, this was like half an hour session. Boom, 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 boom. She worked her magic. She knew exactly what I needed, and I felt it in my bones. And she gave me the challenge of, she goes, today's your birthday. Harness all of the birthday love and all of the energy. Just get it out into the world. She goes, even though you're not launching it, you're not ready to launch it yet. She goes, just set the intention, which was what I did. And the reason that I also did it was a bunch of flowers arrived from Liz literally as I was taking the call from Amy. So that was my sign from the universe that, okay,
Big
something big's going to
sign.
happen here.
Oh.
And I, again, that was trusting a sign from the universe, knowing that up until that point, the resistance had a reason. It was stop, and that was. I'm not going to say I've learned that lesson yet, but it's just I'm reflecting on that lesson at the moment.
Okay, for everyone that's listening, don't do this if you're driving your car, but if you are sat at your desk right now with a piece of paper in front of you, write this down, because what Dianne just said was really significant if you're on a spiritual journey, and that is, set your intention and then allow the universe to figure it out. Because the minute that you set that out, that intention, the vibration, the energy, the jigsaw pieces just kind of roll out. You don't actually logically need to figure out how to do anything. You just wait for the details to show. You wait for the feeling that this is the right time. And, oh God, divine timing. I'm just so passionate. I love divine timing. It's when all of a sudden things pop into place and the feeling is so energized and high, and you walk away with a smile on your face like, fuck, it actually happened.
It's lovely when it happens. Yes, it's fantastic when it happens. But for me, this was a program I had been working on for literally probably 3 years. No, and I was getting those intuitive hits, or something would stop me from doing it. So I was actually force feeding it. Like, I was literally leading up to Christmas thinking the new year is a good time to do it. And I generally do manifest. So I don't manifest with goals or anything like that. I manifest with feelings. Like, my vision board is all about how I want to feel in my life. So, but I was getting the shits. It was like, no, universe, I know, like, I must be doing something wrong. I'm going to initiate something that's going to weave this wrong. It's like, no, sorry, you still need to wait.
It's so hard, because we all go through this loads of times where we want to force something to happen, it doesn't happen, and then eventually we can look back and there's always some type of a lesson or message within it. And yes, you're right, Dianne, once you get that divine timing fitting in, it does feel great, but the majority of the time is that 90% of leading up to that point has been horrible and painful and frustrating. I guess something to think about, or I'm sure that there are lessons that have started to kind of come through, or potentially will continue, more things to come through in the future, is for me, the lesson through going through times like that have been around honesty with myself. But as humans, we can be honest and go like, okay, I'm getting resistance. Something is stopping this from happening. But the human side of us and the conditioning of going to school, of being trained in jobs, the corporate, whatever you want to call it, makes us ask why. But why? But why
Yes.
shouldn't I do this now? But why doesn't this course feel really great? But why isn't it working? Why can't I solve this problem? And I think that question sometimes is really damaging, because the spiritual journey is like, fuck, let me be honest. I'm going to look at my reflection in this mirror and go, I am facing resistance. But stop yourself at that point from going, but why? You've got to somehow surrender
Yeah. Yeah.
completely.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because I know that, and this again is my analytical brain, but this part of it actually serves me, at times when I'm taking a different perspective. So not when I'm analyzing and giving myself a hard time, but it's literally, okay, this is interesting. Why is this happening to me? Observing myself and think my program is called The Great Experiment, because it's literally giving everybody permission to say, look at your life in that way and say, what's not working?
Self-awareness.
And it is for me, because again, change is what I do, that self-awareness, if you don't have self-awareness, if you go to, say Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, any of those things, everything starts with self-awareness. It's like, you need to say that you've got a problem before you can move forward. And if you don't have the self-awareness, you can't drive change from the inside out. And what you
Stuck
really
in
want to
that
do is,
cycle.
you're stuck in it, absolutely. And my awareness, or that kind of higher perspective that I was having of myself, was there were definitely some mental blocks that I need to work through, but they were also energetic in nature. So I went and found people to work with to help me clear those energetic blocks. But again, that was me still, I put a sign out to the universe and said, okay, have these people cross my path. It wasn't like, right, I'm desperately going out looking for someone to help me with this. But the other thing that I did was I observed the fact that so many things were coming back to financials and not spending money on things. And it's like, but it's not like I can't afford it. So I almost had this questionnaire for myself. Can I afford it? Yes. Okay. Do you want it? Yes. Then what's stopping you? And what's stopping you wasn't working for me. So I literally have the post-it notes right behind the camera here. And it says, would I do this if money was no object? Because financial stuff is one of the things I'm working through. And because I'm more in tune with what my human design is as well, the difference between, so if something comes up that I need to pay money for, so as an example, buying a car in Ireland, and this was coming up and I was like, I can't pay more for a car in Ireland than I have here. And it's like, I'm not going to be there long term. And all of that was coming from fear. So then I shifted the thinking to, would I do this if money was no object? It was like, of course, like bing, 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 absolutely. And then the car that I ended up buying was a car that I love. Believe me, I'm not a car person, so it's not somebody else going to think that, oh my God, that's only a little. But it's like a little runabout that has the bells and whistles, it's blue. It's like all these things that I just felt, yes, this is the one. And it was more than I was intending to spend when I was being frugal and kind of, pushing myself into this little box. But it just shows you that if you can build your self-awareness, look at yourself from a higher perspective or a different perspective, and not just overanalyze yourself, and find ways of kind of saying, okay, how can I get myself through this? How can I get myself over this mental block? And treating yourself like an experiment, building the self-awareness, and then deciding, okay, now I've got the self-awareness. Do I want to do something about it? So do I want to buy the car? Do I not want to buy the car? Do I want to, cheap out on this? And there could be a valid reason for that as well, but it still informs my decision on a day-to-day basis when I look at it through that lens.
Oh, wow.
So let's not completely throw the whole brain and intellectualizing things out the window. It serves its purpose as well. See, I'm still holding on a little bit, but
well,
still,
I'm just still
it.
visualizing if I had a post-it note that said, will I still do this if money was an issue? Because I dread to think the shit I'd be doing. You'd be phoning into Zoom with me and I'd be in a different bloody country every day. God, no. That'd be
honestly, the decisions that I have made since that post-it note went on my wall is through the roof. And I feel so good about every one of them.
And that energy just attracts more of.
And that I believe was the essence again of that channeling that was coming through. So it was as much for me as it was for other people, but it was that here's what everybody needs to be doing. And because I'm a coach, And even the way I do keynotes, anything like that, I will offer suggestions to people. I will offer, or I will help people come to a self-awareness or a decision point themselves. I don't tell people, here's what you have to do. That's not what I do. But it kind of felt like that when I was doing the channeling. It's like, here's what you need to do if you're going to survive, the eclipse season. It's like, and it's not exactly that dire. It's just, here's some suggestions to keep your vibration as high as you possibly can. And that's not just an eclipse. That's a great practice to get into for life.
Oh, just amazing. I've got so many questions I could still ask you, Dianne. One thing that I, again, have seen kind of with you is that you have learned a lot from a lot of people, and you've called those people in, and you've had teachers step in when you've needed them. But the one thing I admire is you really do trust and take the action, and for me, that is everything, because we can learn, until the cows come home, but unless we're actually following and trying and doing. And at the end of last year, you came and did my intuitive hit course, and it was just so good to have you on there, because I wanted you to get it as well. I wanted you as my bestie, spiritual support bestie, to kind of get what this intuitive hit thing was, and start to get that awareness that, oh, holy shit, actually these are my intuitive senses. And I saw you on a journey even on that course too,
that was
which
huge.
has opened you up. What, talking about those intuitive senses that you've learned about yourself and what may have helped you to get to this point, what would you say?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, because even when I signed up for that program, and I know I've shared this on the podcast before, anytime Liz would do, these posts that would say, oh, here's, a box and decide what color feathers in it, or here's 3 crystals, which one did I choose? And
the dreaded exercises.
My whole body would repel against these. And I would literally like a kid having a tantrum. I'm not doing that. I don't want to do that. I'm no good at these things. But I always tune into, and like I've said this previously about working with Pauline Nguyen that I've worked with for a couple of years, like as my coach and mentor. Like I had resistance in the beginning to working with her. So that same feeling came up with you, Liz. And I was like, okay, there's something in this. I need to do it. And when I went through it, I realized, the purpose of doing those exercises is for you to tune into what's your gift. How do you, what's the difference between getting a right answer and getting a wrong answer, and tuning in more to that. And for me, so much of that was around my claircognizance, clairsentience, which I would have known anyway, but I didn't realize that I had actual clairvoyance as well. So going through a program like that with a lot of other students who were willing to throw themselves in at the deep end and were learning from each other, that and the validation that you get back from it, then it's like, and in particular, what was helpful for me, because I'm always a how do things work? Anybody watches or listens to this podcast knows that I'm always but how does that work? So for me, it was, how am I getting these messages? How are other people getting these messages? And you had encouraged us to, when I got this message, or when I decided that it was the rose quartz crystal, I saw rose quartz, or I saw a rose, I smelled this, I sensed this. Like you literally would make us, capture which of the senses that was helping us out. So building that as a practice was really, really good for me. And by the end of the program, because you had got us to do a reading on each other, we just randomly paired up, and we're from all walks of life. The students, we didn't know each other, didn't know anybody's background. Yes, we all have stuff on social media, but the actual process of the downloads that I was getting while doing that reading on another person, and this wasn't using cards, this was literally just tuning into what I thought was happening in their life at that point in time. So the reading itself was through the roof. Then to have it validated, to have someone come back and say, oh, you saw a blue car, that's exactly what, or I've traveled here, I've done this. I'm like, holy shit. And even to the point of figuring out some blocks and things. And you feel a bit worried thinking, oh, is that a bit personal to put it in? I thought, no, put it in, write it all in.
You had a lot of trust, didn't you? You really excelled with that.
Yeah. But it is, I do think, and I know this, and this is not just, the course that I was on with you, but my original mentor that I had, Felicity, like I just always find, because I'm a coach, I value, like I will always invest in myself. You hear of coaches who don't, have their coach, but for me, I will always have someone that I'm working with.
Walk the
Always,
walk,
always.
Dianne.
Because I only know what I know. I need someone to be able to come in and kind of
Yeah.
prod me with other things, but keep practicing, find different ways of, unveiling your
And,
gifts.
and again, kind of going back to the timing of all of the learnings. I
Yep.
mean, it's look at it, it's laughable, isn't it? Like you've opened up your senses, you've done your Akashic records, you've done the clearing, you've overcome the blocks, you've surrendered to the resistance, and then
Yeah.
literally right before you're about to make this huge move to the other side of the world, something that you've wanted to do for a long time, suddenly the jigsaw pieces fit into place.
You
Wow.
fit into place, and yes, they do. And I'm like freaking out, thinking, "Oh my god, I've committed to this program. Oh my god, I have to pack up my life here." And my daughter's doing assessments at the moment, so there's the hassle with homework and extra stress and stuff in the house, and I'm freaking out in the best possible way. And every time I think to myself, oh, I should be doing a post about this, or I need to have this updated, and oh, I have to get my copy checked and that. And then it's like, chill, just seriously. Just, if this is meant to happen, it is going to happen. And now, particularly because I had that channeling experience, it's like, okay. And I realized that I had this I rewrote a keynote that I delivered the year before last. And the night before, I tuned into the audience, because I always do that, even though I haven't met them yet. And I rewrote my keynote the night before, which is you
I
do
love
not
that
do
story.
that. You're told not to do these things, when you're a professional speaker. And I still had my old keynote in the bag. Obviously, I remembered it. And when I went in, I felt into the energy that morning, and it was absolutely okay. You're on the right track. You know what you need to do. And I do feel, to a degree, that a lot of that was channeled. Now, I'm not suggesting that anybody just get up on stage and do a keynote and do that. It's like there's a lot of still training and muscle memory, and all of the work had gone in before that. And the tweaks that had been done were probably 20%, or just shifting the message in a certain way. But I realized, yes, I'd done channeling there again. But when the timing is right, and when your back's up against the wall, and when you have to get something done that is in line with your soul's purpose, it just comes together. So trust that.
Oh, yes, I could not say that better myself, Dianne. I'd like to know, because we're coming to the end of our podcast together, being in the hot seat today, I'd like to just ask about the Great Experiment, because I know that there's going to be information out there for everyone to check out, and it's something that just sounds so exciting. But can you share a little bit about?
Essentially, so the Great Experiment is to help people through change in their lives. So for some people, you know exactly what you want to change. So maybe you want to change careers, maybe you want to start a business, maybe you want to leave a relationship. Like, there could be all sorts of things that you want to do in your life, but you're not doing them. So this program kind of gives you a vehicle to create change in your life. Now, and me, I will be the coach and the facilitator, bringing people through that. But I'm also going through this great experiment myself, because I'm changing my life up. I'm going to Ireland. I'm, diving into human design. I'm doing a lot of weird and wacky stuff in the spiritual realms that I'm going to be doing going through this program as well. But you also have people so they're people who know what they want to do or what they want to change. But there's also loads of people who just have that unsettled feeling where, I want to change something in my life, but I have no idea what it is. I just need an injection of something that's going to give me a different perspective of life, or maybe a little bit of courage, maybe a different perspective of what I want to do. So whether you know what you want to change and you're just don't know how to do it, or you're someone that is, I want to change, but I have no idea where to start, that's what the program is for. And
sounds so exciting.
Oh gosh. And from a personal standpoint, so I will say this, from a personal standpoint, it is actually, the people that I view that are doing this are almost like former versions of me. So people who have been through a relationship breakup, people who've been made redundant, people who've had a mental health breakdown, and they just want to get their life back on track. people who have had career changes or want to start a business. So it does not matter what you want to do. And you will have people who are on the spiritual end of the spectrum, and you'll have people who are on the corporate end of the spectrum. It does not matter. Everybody's going to be running their own race, so to speak. And I will be providing the prompts and the way to go through that. The reason it's called the Great Experiment is you're going to fail. There's going to be messiness. There's going to be lots of things where the wheels fall off, but give yourself permission to do it. You will learn so much about yourself along the way. And in that kind of safe environment, it'll be a case of every time we fail at something, that's a good thing. Just get back on the horse and we will continue with the program. And whether you miss a week, that's fine. Everything will be able to be, caught up. You'll actually not lose any momentum on it. So it's just a vehicle for change. And all of it is built on my inner compass model, which is what I use for all of my coaching programs. So you kind of leave with, here's this tool that I can use to navigate through any change in my life.
Of course. So I think that there'll be so many people listening right now that are dying to find out more. So please head to the show notes, because we will put all of the links on where you can find Dianne and follow her, and even go to her social media and make sure you're checking out what she's doing in Ireland. I will be giving her a call in the middle of the night, all different times, to make sure she's not missing me too much or forgetting me, maybe one or the other. And on the note of channeling, I feel like we definitely need to run an event on how to channel for people. What do you reckon? Because I feel like there is something that everyone needs to learn. Like it's just so easy to do, and I think we all do it, but we just don't know how.
Yes, and I think even educating people on here's what it is, or you realize that you actually do it. So the channel on the channel.
Perfect. It's just meant to be. Divine timing and all that. On the note of the events, you're going to see some huge, exciting changes for Spiritual as Fuck over the next few months. So definitely watch this space. Make sure that you are subscribed to our newsletter and you are following us on Instagram, because we are launching, as well as our channel events that are those incredible practical workshops where we bring experts in to teach you. We're launching something called the Supercharge Sessions, which are going to be these short, bite-sized 30-minute chances to learn the practical application of something. So that could be how to ground. We could do a protection. We could do, I don't know how to do a psychic reading. Who knows? We'll cover everything. But it's going to be super fun and hopefully really inspiring and very interesting as well. So watch this space. But to wrap up, Dianne, thank you so much. I hope you get everything done in time, and good luck with your new beginning in Ireland.
Thank you, Liz. Thanks, everyone. That's it for another episode.
Thank you for listening. Did you know that we are building a movement of 1 million people who are spiritual as fuck? We would love for you to join us. You can start by leaving us a review on Apple Podcast. Every month, I'm going to intuitively choose one person and do a psychic reading for you. So
follow us on Instagram, send in your stories and topic suggestions, and join the movement
at spiritual.a.f. Until next time.